is no real negotiations going on, I would say, because the two sides are talking to each other via Pakistan or Qatari government, something like that. But maybe, I don't know if there is any phone call behind the scene. I cannot confirm that because I have seen no news in the Persian media talking about that. That's why I assumed only they're sending messages back and forth through Pakistani government. What is your understanding of what's going on?
That's my understanding. I mean, it's a negotiation. It's just not your classic negotiation. How else do you expect the United States and Iran to speak to each other today? Donald Trump is an insane individual, literally, demonstrably, suffering from narcissistic personality disorder of the most malignant variety. We don't have a president. We have a cult of personality. This is all about the Donald and how things impact him. Then you have an Iranian government. It's all about Iran and about geopolitical reality, and they live in the real world. So anytime you blend the real world with a fantasy world, you're going to have a gap between the two, and that gap is going to be impossible to bridge directly. So you need dream interpreters, I guess, and that's where Pakistan and Qatar fall into place. Their job is to, try to cobble together some sort of understanding between these two entities that can bring about a shared objective. But the problem is there is no shared objective. Donald Trump's objectives are purely political in nature, how they impact him here at home. Iran's objectives are purely, selfish in nature, to be honest. They have every right to be selfish, but it's about how this benefits Iran. Iran, which is the aggrieved party. Iran, which was attacked, a surprise attack, an act of perfidy by the United States and Israel on February 28th. Never the two shall meet. Apparently, I mean, even if a temporary agreement is reached, understand that even some of the text that the Iranian media has been publishing talks about issues being pushed off. Anytime you get Donald Trump to push something off, it just means that you're giving him a window of opportunity to vacillate, change his mind, interfere, disrupt. And the actions that you speak of are, I think, part and parcel of what's going to be the new reality. I think both parties understand there needs to be relative freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. What the United States will get out of it is the flow of energy, which will alleviate a global economic crisis. What Iran will get out of it is the fact that they're going to be allowed to collect an environmental tax or whatever they want to call it. And I think that's pretty much the only agreement we're going to get, which is an agreement which I don't know it'll ever be manifested in writing, because I don't think Donald Trump's agreement capable. He can't afford to be seen as losing this war. And yet he lost this war. And so I think that's where we're at right now. That all parties are focused on how to keep shipping flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. What happened with the downing is a clash designed for the United States to imprint itself, to say we're still here, we're relevant, we can, we're somehow large and in charge. But at some point in time, we're going to have to stand down and allow traffic to go through. But that doesn't mean there's going to be an agreement on some of the more difficult things: the nuclear program, ballistic missiles, Lebanon, ceasefires, all that. It's hard to say where we're going. It's impossible. Because again, I've said this before. You've heard me say it, and I'll say it again. You can't expect people like me, you, and others to get into the mind of a madman, literally an insane individual. Donald Trump is mentally ill. He suffers from mental illness. And therefore, he cannot be predicted. You cannot apply normal, cause-effect rationality to what he does. His social media posts are all over the place. The only consistency appears to be his ability to manipulate the markets in a way that are beneficial to insiders who are aware of, what he's going to post, when he's going to post it. But otherwise, nothing he's doing is to the benefit of the United States. That's a statement of fact.
Here is what he said moments ago about the Strait of Hormuz and his shocking comment on Oman. Here is what he said.
Iran wants control of the Strait of Hormuz. Would you accept a short-term deal that allows Iran and Oman to control the strait? And would they have to open it immediately, or would you be open to that happening over a period of time?
No, the strait's going to be open to everybody.
And who would control it?
It's international waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, so we'll have to blow them up.
Just unbelievable. Oman is the guy who has nothing to do with any war, and he's threatening the government in Oman.
Let's just hit rewind. Donald Trump is a mentally ill individual. All right. Think of the narcissism that's encompassed in everything he just said. We will watch over it. Really? Is that your job, Donnie baby? Who appointed you to be the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz? This is his own little fantasy world. You tried that, Donald, and Iran spit slapped you. You lost. You can't open it up. You don't have any ability. You're sitting there with a Secretary of War who got his ass kicked and a Secretary of State / National Security Advisor who gave you some of the worst advice ever. You're surrounded by losers, and you are the ultimate loser. I mean, literally, staple an L to this guy's forehead. Don't pay attention to anything this guy says, because here's the reality of it. 6 hours from now, he'll post something different. And 6 hours from now, he'll post something different. The man is a lunatic, a raving, mad, insane individual. Do you think, I mean, you know Iran. Do you think the Iranians woke up? Oh, shit, we're in trouble now. Donnie's mad at us. We better do something. You think the Omanis went, whoa, damn, he's going to blow us up. He's not going to do anything against Oman. Nothing. These are empty threats. He's got nothing left. He already threw his Sunday punch. You know, he got into the ring with Mike Tyson and he gave it the best shot, hit him in the jaw. And Mike Tyson went, let's go. That's it. That was your best punch. You ain't going to knock Mike Tyson out. You're not going to knock Iran out. That's the reality. Many in the United States can't wake up and accept this reality. It's true. We lost the war and we can't win this war. We're not going to reverse course. The time it would take for us to build and assemble the forces necessary to have a meaningful impact is prohibitively long. Meanwhile, all Iran has to do is squeeze the Strait of Hormuz and choke the life out of the global economy, which will bring about a general collapse. To include a collapse in the United States would make it impossible for us to generate the forces that we need to for Iran holds all the cards. That's the reality.
How do you see the pressure from the Israeli government? Ben-Gvir today said Donald Trump cannot make a bad deal, and Israel is not going to accept that. How we know that the Trump administration, you remember when this administration was elected, we were talking about Tulsi Gabbard, the people who were more, rational in the Trump administration. Those people are gone mostly, and I would say the vice president of the United States is somehow disappearing from the scene. We haven't heard that much from J.D. Vance. It's been a while. But what is happening to the Trump administration, and what do we know about the leverage the Israeli government has on the Trump administration?
Oh, the Israeli government believes that it's bought and paid for the United States, and it has. Bought us, paid for it, and we're supposed to dance to their tune. That's the way the relationship works. They give you a lot of money, and then they tell you what to do when it comes to Israel, and you do it. Contractual relationship, straight up. They bought Congress, spent $100 million last election cycle to buy Congress. They're working on buying Congress again, $30 million to unseat Thomas Massie. They're spending more money to try and control races. And Donald Trump continues to be surrounded people bought and paid for by Israel, especially Marco Rubio, $200 million from Adelson's widow. Gets you a Secretary of State. So Ben-Gvir, I think, believes what he says. He believes it. He doesn't know a damn thing about the United States of America. Because first, when we talk about politics, the only thing that matters is money. And of course, the Israelis have thrown a lot of money to buy American politicians. But once you put an American politician in office, they want to stay in office. Now, Israel's leveraged their ability to manipulate money to, to maintain control over that process as well. If you don't do what we want, we'll primary you. We'll spend money and put somebody up against you, and then you have to run against them and all that. All right, that's good and dandy. And most people don't want to be primary, so they play the Israeli game because there's no downside. The American people have shown that there literally is no downside for being pro-Israel. The vast majority of the people that are pro-Israel get reelected year after year after year after year after year. There's no downside until Israel starts a war that we lose. And there's a threat of general global economic collapse that impacts the United States, high oil price. We're back to money. Remember what I told you? The only thing that counts in American politics is money. Bill Clinton, James Carville, his campaign manager back in 1992, I think, said it best: a yellow sticker on the door of the war room. It's the economy, stupid. That's the only thing that gets American politicians elected. No American politician gets elected on Israel. Israel's a supporting factor. Every American politician gets elected on the economy. Ultimately, it comes down to how do the American people feel about their wallet and their bank account when they go to the election booth. That's it. Everything else is window dressing. If you have two sides that are playing the same economic cards, then you can pick, gun control, abortion, Israel, and these things to help tip it over. But the bottom line is it's the party that the Americans feel is going to generate more money in their bank account at the end of each month. And Donald Trump's in trouble right now because he's in the process of destroying the economy of an entire nation. And Israel's in trouble. Ben-Gvir may not recognize this, but Israel's being blamed, rightfully so, for getting us involved in this war. So when people say, Donald Trump, why did this happen? Donald Trump's going to say, Benjamin Netanyahu made me do it. Ben-Gvir has no control over Donald Trump, none. When the day comes when Donald Trump is looking at, his political legacy, which means if he screws this up, impeachment, perhaps conviction, and he's weighing that on the grand scales of life with Ben-Gvir and Israel, guess who's going to lose? Ben-Gvir and Israel. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's the economy, stupid. The economy sinks anyway. George Herbert Walker Bush, won the Gulf War. Great victorious leader. Man, he was looking good. There's no way. I mean, we won that in 91. How could he lose in 92? How could he lose in 92? Impossible to lose. Read my lips. No new taxes. And then he put on new taxes. And that was the end of him. Winning a war didn't matter. Being the best national security president there didn't matter. It was the economy, stupid. Bill Clinton was right. It's just the way it is. You know who knows this? Ben-Gvir's boss, Benjamin Netanyahu. He gave an interview where he said, we have to decouple ourselves from the United States financially within 10 years. Because he sees, you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. He sees the weather. He sees what's happening. And he sees the United States, fully 60% of the Americans have already become disenchanted with Israel, don't support it fully. That number is going to get worse as the economy grows worse. And we look at, who's to blame for this? Israel. And he recognizes at some point in time, America is going to cut the umbilical cord. Ben-Gvir is wrong. Israel can't dictate squat to the United States unless the United States wants to be dictated to. Meaning that if it's good to have your money and get elected and it doesn't cost me anything meaningful, I'll do it. But the moment it costs me, the moment I have to pay a price domestically, politically for supporting your failed little nation, we'll cut it in a heartbeat. Cut it in a heartbeat. And so Ben-Gvir is dead wrong. Netanyahu knows the truth, that eventually America is going to cut Israel off. And if Ben-Gvir wants to play stupid games in a period of immediate political crisis for the president of the United States, who's looking at a disaster in the midterms, he'll find out the hard way that Israel has no cards in this game, none whatsoever.
Smotrich yesterday said that Benjamin Netanyahu forced the United States into this war. And what else can the United States do for Israel, Scott? I would say this is the final goal for Israel, the United States attacking Iran. What else can they do? What do they want from the United States? I don't understand it. I don't understand when they say we want to continue the war. What does that mean for Israel? And how is that going to help them?
Well, first of all, this is the last, if this was a computer game, we're at the final boss. Iran's the final boss. There is no other boss. The final boss is Iran. And you can't fight the final boss without the United States. You have to have the United States as an ally. So do you think Israel's going to admit defeat and just walk away? No. They're going to keep saying, America, you have to stay and finish the job, stay and finish the job, stay and finish the job. But they didn't do their homework right. They sold this war falsely, wrongly. I mean, they got Donald Trump to believe that if you killed Ali Khamenei, Iran will collapse and all the other problems solve themselves, and that this would happen within a matter of days. And sure enough, on day one, we killed Ali Khamenei. Iran didn't collapse, just the opposite. And now everything Israel told the United States turns out to be a lie. And Donald Trump's paying the political price for it. That's the reality. What does Israel want? They have no plan B. Because a plan B means that you don't get to beat the big boss, which means you don't get to win the game. And the game is Greater Israel. That's the name of the game, Greater Israel. If you don't beat the big boss, then you're going to have to make concessions everywhere, and you're going to have to fall into a different game called preserving Little Israel. But the cost you're going to pay for failing, for gambling to take on the final boss and losing, is you will probably change the demographics of the region dramatically because of the difficulty of continuing to live in Israel. People will flee, and you're going to have a different game called a one-state solution named Palestine. So Israel, they're in dire straits right now, literally dire straits. And, fat genocidal maniacs like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich will continue to spout crap and nonsense, and ultimately they're going to pay the price. Politically. I mean, I wouldn't want to be an Israeli today. Let me put it that way. This is not going to be a good decade for them.
Here is what Donald Trump said about the Abraham Accords.
To have the countries we were talking about with Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and the others, we'd like to have them immediately join and Steve Witkoff is working on that with Jared and some others, but would like to have them join the Abraham Accords. It'll be historic if they do it. And I think they owe that to us, to be honest. I think, because that really would be a tremendous sign. And I think those countries owe it to us.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
They owe it to us because we got them involved in a war that we lost. We promised them security that we couldn't deliver. We created a situation where they are now living under the threat of national extinction because of America. They owe it to us to give us, to buy into a policy that's all about Palestinian genocide and the elimination of any possibility of a Palestinian state, shifting the blame away from Israel onto the Gulf Arab nations. That's what they owe us. Donald Trump is the most, again, he's insane. Okay. We have to stop treating him like he's a normal human being. That's an insane man there. No rational human being can make that claim. They owe it to us. They don't owe anything to you, Donald. None. I mean, do you understand the insanity that's inherent in that statement? This man is not well. And the fact that Hegseth and Rubio sit there compliantly, nodding and they're not well either. They're facilitators of insanity. There was a time when people made fun of Joe Biden for, cruelty to the elderly by keeping Joe Biden in play when he's clearly out of it. Well, we have a situation now where we have people who are facilitating the mentally ill. And most people would say that that's abuse. But it is abuse of a nation, abuse of the world by this clinically insane individual who thinks that he's owed something that nobody ever bought into in a major way. I mean, the Saudis have clearly linked the Abraham Accord to Palestinian statehood. And if you're not going to give Palestine statehood, then why do you think the Saudis are going to do something for you? He's a sick man. Donald Trump is a sick man. He's not well. And unfortunately, people aren't executing the 25th Amendment. He continues to function as the chief executive. And therefore, this sick man, when he tweets or posts and when he speaks, we have to listen to him. But try to breathe common sense and rational, analytical structures into what he's saying. You can't do that. You can't do that. Nothing he says makes sense. He lives in a fantasy world.
We know during the Biden administration, we talk a lot about the war in Ukraine. We knew who was in charge, who's doing this, who's doing that. Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Victoria Nuland, all these people who were somehow in charge of some sort of policies when it came to Ukraine and foreign policy. Right now, many people are asking who's in charge in the Trump administration. Is Donald Trump himself? Because look at Pete Hegseth today. I don't believe that this guy is making any sort of policies, but following the orders of Donald Trump. Marco Rubio, the same. You see no sign of Marco Rubio's policies when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to the Middle East. He's not even negotiating on any of these two fronts. And we've seen him in Armenia signing a deal. Nobody seems to understand that. But after all, you don't see Rubio participating in major issues of the foreign policy of the United States. Who's in charge? Is it the Israeli lobby by the influence they have on Donald Trump? Is it Donald Trump himself deciding about these things? What is your assessment of that?
Well, it's not the Israeli. The Israeli lobby had, got us involved in this war, but we lost the war, and Israel no longer has a vote. I mean, let's just be clear about it. Israel has no vote. They can scream, they can shout, but they're irrelevant. This is about domestic American politics. That's what drives Donald Trump. And if he can't sell it to a domestic American audience, he pays a political price. So let's forget about Israel. I mean, again, let's talk, Hegseth. Hegseth promoted a war that can't be won. You should be paying the price. Hegseth is sitting there listening to Donald Trump. NATO didn't come to our assistance, so we're going to start drawing down in NATO, and we're going to do. And Hegseth's like, okay. And we also are facing a monetary shortfall. We're out of money. We don't have any money left. We're putting a heavy brigade out of Texas onto ships, sending them off to Poland to do this 9-month rotation. It's going to cost us an arm and a leg. And Trump's unhappy with Europe. We're canceling it. Pete Hegseth. We're canceling the 4,200 troops heading to Poland. We're canceling it. Not going to happen. The heavy brigade isn't going. It's done. And everybody's like, wow, look at the United States actually taking, action based upon statements made by the president. Then the president comes out and goes, nah, we're transferring 5,000 troops to Poland. Now imagine being the Poles going, what the hell is going on here? Imagine being the average American who doesn't know anything about anything, because the average American is going 4,200, 5,000. I mean, it's a write-off, right? No, the Poles know the truth. See, those 4,200 guys, part of that rotational brigade, is part of a negotiated systemic approach to America providing military assistance to a larger NATO deterrence posture in the region. So every 9 months, we rotate in a heavy armored brigade. And we have status of forces agreement built to do just that are very comprehensive, because we have to bring our ships into Hamburg. We have to offload the material, then get it to Poland. So we've negotiated ways to make this happen, customs-free transfer of power, the whole thing. Then they get in there, and we have status forces agreement on where they stay, how they operate. This brigade doesn't stay as a brigade. We send it off to train in the north. We send it down to train in the south. We move it all over Europe. And then 9 months later, it rotates out. Another brigade rotates in. And we keep a heavy brigade there. That was the idea. The 5,000 troops that Trump's talking about is a brigade, a striker brigade, I believe, that's based in Germany. It's a striker brigade. It means it's light armor. It ain't a heavy armor brigade, but it's 5,000 troops. There is no status forces agreement with Poland to do that. You can't just make it interchangeable. We're talking not temporary rotation. We're talking about the permanent relocation, which means now we need the kind of status forces agreement that we have with Germany, negotiated over the long term. What happens to the families that live there? Do we now build base housing? Who's going to pay for the base housing? We're talking about billions of dollars of infrastructure that they put in before we can begin to think about transferring these 5,000 people. And more importantly, Congress has to approve all this, and Congress hasn't been consulted on this whatsoever. Even Trump loyalists are saying, we never heard about this before, and it ain't going to happen. So what Poland's seeing, the reality from the Polish perspective, is we ain't getting 4,200 troops, and those 5,000 troops ain't never going to show up here, so we're getting nothing. Nothing. That's the reality of Trump policymaking. This is the insanity of the system. It's just crazy stuff. Look at Marco Rubio. He was Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. I mean, supposed to be Henry Kissinger-like. He received a phone call from Lavrov, and Rubio's like, I don't really want Lavrov. Said, you're going to take it. Okay, I'm taking it. Then Lavrov says, this is what's going to happen to Kiev. This message needs to get to the president. Rubio doesn't have to say, well, you can't talk to me that way. You're not allowed to threaten people. Rubio, get it to the president. Because this is the reality. Donald Trump has literally neutered his cabinet, cut their balls right off. Sorry for the language, but that's what neutering is. He's emasculated them. None of these people play the role of traditional cabinet. The only person who tried to, Tulsi Gabbard, had to resign. Now, ostensibly for the health of her husband, and I'm not denigrating that. It's real, but people have managed with sick relatives to stay in office when they're feeling but Trump was unhappy with her because she dared contradict him on some big ticket items like Iran and its nuclear program. And she was disinvited to, participate in broader discussions about Ukraine, about the war in Iran, etc. So she resigned. You can't cut off her balls because she doesn't have any, and yet as a woman she has bigger balls than everybody else in the cabinet. She's more of a man than half the men there, because at least she stood up for something and had integrity, and ultimately confronted with the failure of the president to live up to